Countryside is on display. Pack up your caravans. We'll travel down a great highway through our wide sun-blessed land. The Leylands, Australia, great Aussie holidays. Australia, let the Leylands show you the way. The Leylands will show you Australia. Let the Leylands show you the way.
Every year between January and March, the mangrove-laced rivers of the Gulf of Carpentaria engorge with monsoonal rains to inundate the coastal mudflats, blurring the boundary between land and sea. We've already experienced quite a few monsoonal storms in the Gulf, so we've decided to abandon our plans to travel across the Gulf on the dirt road, and instead this leg of our journey will take us south to Mount Isa, west into the Northern Territory, and then north all the way to Darwin.
Along the way, we'll investigate Australia's prehistoric past.
Journey up Katherine Gorge.
See the waterfalls of Litchfield National Park.
Indulge in the cosmopolitan cuisine of Darwin.
And visit Kakadu National Park in the wet. Fortunately, the road south is sealed with bitumen. The dry season is well and truly over now until next year. Already the north of Australia is awakening with life-giving rain. Lagoons fill, plants bloom, and the wildlife stirs. Australia's largest member of the crane family is the brolga. They stand about 1 metre tall, dominating the roadside lagoons. The road crosses an ironstone ridge called the Bang Bang Jump Up. The ground here is higher and less susceptible to flooding. This fact seems to be known to the millions of termites which build and inhabit these strange, gnarled structures. Like a forgotten cemetery of unmarked graves, the sea of tombstones impart a weird, alien feel to the landscape.
Each of these impressive nests is like a high-rise apartment building, housing thousands of termites. The termites collect and store wood and other decaying vegetable matter within these miniature silos to sustain them through the wet season. For this reason, it's rare to find any fallen timber on the ground. Trees are devoured where they fall.
The only relief from the 40-degree heat is when our vehicles are moving. Thank goodness for air conditioning. We must stop occasionally, however, to refuel, take a rest and have lunch. Mum, can we get back into the air-conditioned car now?
Yeah, I'm ready, so when those will get going.
Even this far south, the creeks are already filling with storm waters. Without bridges, this road would already be impassable. Mount Isa is a sizable town of around 22,000 people. It's dominated by the copper, zinc and silver mine, without which there would be no town. Within 2 days, the wet weather has followed us south to Mount Isa. Now, this prosperous mining town in Western Queensland is on an all-weather highway, so at least from here, we shouldn't get stranded.
Famous last words, Dad. Overnight, the heaviest deluge on record for this time of the year cuts the roads in all directions. We're stranded for 8 days until the water subsides.
At least there's plenty to see while we wait. The Mining Museum houses an informative display depicting the mining history of Mount Isa, which began in 1923 and has become one of the country's most successful mining stories.
The Riversley Fossil Centre houses a world-class depiction of life as it was in Australia's prehistoric past. In ancient times, today's arid outback was covered with lush tropical rainforest, and the fossil remains of the strange animals which roamed it have been used to reconstruct that lost world. These animals are the prehistoric ancestors to those we know today. The Tasmanian tiger, ghost bats, a primitive forerunner of the kangaroo. And large marsupials as big as ponies with trunks to help them browse on leafy trees.
This ancient world has been painstakingly reconstructed from fossil evidence frozen in rock from Riversley Station, 200 kilometres away from Mount Isa. Some bones, like those of primeval bats, can only be seen with the aid of a microscope.
While we're floodbound in Mount Isa, Mum takes the opportunity to get a new hairstyle. After 8 days, the rains cease, the waters subside, and we resume our journey west.
Let the Leylands show you the way.
Delighted to be on the road again, we quickly travel west into the Northern Territory. Roadside creeks and lagoons fed by the recent rains greet us with bursts of floral splendour.
We stop overnight at one of several roadside water bores along the highway. These watering spots have been placed strategically along the long, lonely and arid stretches of the highway to assist travellers traversing the outback of the Northern Territory.
With morning comes a chattering flock of feathered visitors. Hundreds of tiny zebra finches, attracted by water seeping from the artesian bore, snatch a nervous drink. These colourful birds are common in the outback. We hope no one repairs the leak. It's probably the only permanent water in the region, and finches will never venture more than a few kilometres from their reliable supply.
Excellent roads make short work of the desolate outback travel as we quickly make up for time lost by floodwaters. After 500 kilometres, we head north along the Stuart Highway. For the Territory, this is the main transport link with the southern states.
The Stuart Highway is named after one of our most famous explorers. This monument marks the spot where John Stuart was attacked by Aborigines in 1860. This was his first attempt to cross Australia from Adelaide to the north of Australia.
Attack Creek is peaceful enough today, offering a good spot to reflect on the determination of Stuart, who made 2 more arduous expeditions before successfully finding a route to the north in 1862.
Just a little further up the highway, we cross a small creek to reach one of the oldest rest stops in the Territory, Daly Waters. This tiny town has served as a respite for weary travellers since Stuart named it. It soon became a camp for stockmen droving cattle in the 1880s. When the overland telegraph line was forged through the desert from Adelaide to Darwin, Daly Waters became a repeater telegraph station. The pub still caters to the needs of passers-by, be they truckies or tourists. Relics on display include camel train water cans and old flying doctor radios.
The airstrip at Daly Waters has its own history, all of which is portrayed in the photographic display housed in the now defunct hangar. In 1934 it was used by participants in the London to Sydney air race. Airmail for Britain was dispersed here for distribution all over Australia, and Qantas used it as a staging stopover on the first international flights to Europe. During the Second World War, the runway was upgraded for use as bomber command. Mitchell and Hudson bombers were flown out of here by American pilots for daylight strikes in the Pacific. Australian pilots flew the night attacks.
Little remains of those desperate times but a sense of gratitude to those who protected our country from their isolated outpost in the outback.
We moved just 180 kilometres north to camp at Mataranka Springs. Here, extensive shaded campgrounds and powered sites for caravans provide an ideal setting for travellers. No trip through this region should be made without stopping here. Adjacent to the camping area is one of the Territory's natural wonders. Piping hot water has been bubbling forth from the underground for thousands of years, creating a lush green oasis. The Mataranka thermal springs, with crystal water and towering palms, has been a popular natural swimming hole for decades.
$30 million litres of water a day flowing here at 34 degrees Celsius.
The perfect way to relax before moving on to Katherine.
Let the Leylands show you the way.
We leave our caravans in Katherine, just over 300 kilometres south of Darwin, to investigate some of the region's attractions. Kakadu caves were discovered by a stockman around 1900. This tropical cave system consists of a series of limestone caverns connected by narrow passages. A surprising number of animals live in the caves in total darkness. These tiny, colourful geckos are blind and live in the dark zone, feeding on insects which wander inside. Other reptiles live here too, as we soon find out.
The little banded tree snakes, they're about 1 foot long, and they're very cute with the little stripes on their back. But yeah, most of them have moved out of the cave now. Either that or they've been eaten by the ghost bats. You're very lucky to see them. It's usually curled away, but this time in the afternoon they sometimes come out. These snakes, although they are harmless, they do get very, very aggressive.
Elevated walkways and steps provide easy access to the caves. Because of heavy tropical rainfall every wet season, cave formations are abundant and still growing. Mineral-rich water seeping through from above emerges in hundreds of places in the cave, evaporating and leaving behind another microscopic deposit of calcite. In this way, the stalactites, stalagmites and crystalline flowstones continue to grow as they have done for eons. Nature is a patient builder.
To see another example of nature's patient handiwork, we take to the air in a helicopter. Just 20 minutes' drive from Katherine is the region's biggest attraction, Katherine Gorge. Cracks in the very ancient sandstone of the Arnhem Land Plateau have been eroded by the timeless waters of the Katherine River to form a chain of 13 marvellous gorges. Perhaps the best way to appreciate the expansive scale of the gorge system is from the air. Helicopter joy flights last about 12 minutes. Each gorge is separated from the next by a set of rapids or rock bars.
To experience Katherine Gorge up close, we take a boat ride upstream. The towering red cliffs and the vast stretches of water suddenly seem much larger. Organised cruises vary from 2-hour excursions to full-day safaris, which penetrate as far as the 5th Gorge. At this time of the year, however, with wet season rains feeding the river, access is restricted to the first 2 gorges.
To explore the next gorge, we leave the boat and walk around the rapids to resume travel in 2 smaller boats moored there for just such a purpose.
For thousands of years, this timeless land of weathered rocks and running water echoed with the sounds of Aboriginal hunters as they roamed these majestic ancient canyons. Our journey deeper up the Katherine Gorge is like a voyage into their distant primeval world.
A swimming hole called Lily Ponds, complete with a majestic tumbling waterfall, marks the end of our Katherine Gorge experience. We take a few photographs and return to our caravans in town.
Let the Leylands show you the way.
The old gold mining town of Pine Creek is just off the Stuart Highway. At the height of the gold rush, it served the needs of 30,000 miners. Today's population is less than 500.
A roadside display of rusting relics from the mining boom act to conserve the region's colourful past. The best way to learn of the region's mining history is to visit the Gun Alley Gold Mine, where visitors can see a working steam-powered jaw crusher and stamp battery.
In 1870, when they were installing the overland telegraph line, the northern construction crew were digging holes for poles about 30 kilometres north of here at a place called Sandy Creek. Suddenly one day in one of the OT pole holes they turned up some gold. So I dare say there wasn't much work done on the OT line that day.
Canadian-born owner Earl Gano, who has lived in the territory for most of his life, commences each tour with a little history. He then loads his ore crusher with a rock from his nearby mine.
We're small miners ourselves. This equipment that's here, originally it came from one of many small mines around the place. It came from a little mine called Fletcher's Gully gold mine. And Fletcher's Gully was operational back in the 30s, and after that time it was just abandoned there, this equipment, and just left old rusty equipment in the bush. And one of the local miners who owned that lease gave me the equipment, and I gradually restored it all and set it up here according to the way it was set up at Fletcher's Gully.
Within a few minutes, the stamp battery reduces 1/4 of a tonne of ore to a small pan of material.
That's about an ounce in there. If you were to clean all the fines out of here, you'd have about an ounce there.
The universal lure of gold never fails to intrigue. In hard rock veins, in free-form nuggets, or the smelted ingots of Earl's labour.
Well, hundreds of thousands of tons.
Time to move on.
We're on the Stuart Highway at the moment, just north of Adelaide River. We're driving through a torrential downpour. This is the kind of rain that you kind of imagine the wet season has all day, every day, but of course that's not true. You usually get these big storms in the afternoon. The storm clears as quickly as it started, just as we arrive at the small town of Bachelor, where a butterfly breeding farm has recently been established by Chris Horn.
This is adenia, this plant here, and that's one of the main food plants for 4 different kinds of butterflies. This one here. This plant here is a plant for the Ulysses. Oh, yeah. That's why we can start breeding them. So we just start growing all the different trees for the butterflies now, and this one's for the blue triangle. So everywhere here there's all different plants for all different kind of butterflies. There's these things, cleans the brain out.
And won't work on Carmen then.
Growing food plants for the caterpillars is the most time-consuming part of the operation. It's only when the young butterflies have emerged from their chrysalises that Chris releases them in his large aviary-like enclosures.
How long does it take to dry the wings?
Maybe about 5-10 minutes. So they'll be flying like within maybe 10 minutes now.
Within the enclosures, the butterflies breed and lay eggs to start the cycle all over again.
This is the crow chrysalis, and it's the most commonest butterfly in the Northern Territory. I actually call it the brown prince because I think the crow is a terrible name for a butterfly. And it feeds on this tree here. This is a banyan tree, and it also feeds on ficus trees as well.
There are 382 different species of butterfly native to Australia. Seem impressive? Well, perhaps not when compared with over 20,000 species throughout the world. Chris usually has only 6 different species on display at any one time.
enjoy. Okay?
We pause for lunch at the Butterfly Farm Cafe before moving on to Litchfield National Park. Litchfield is famous for its waterfalls and contains 6 spectacular cascades. First on our waterfall crawl through the park is Florence Falls. Fed with copious quantities of water from the monsoonal rains, these falls are at their best during the wet season.
A well-constructed pathway descends from the top of the sandstone escarpment to the plunge pool at the base of the falls. The ever-present sound of trickling water in the forest mingles with the background roar of the falls every step of the way. High in the rainforest canopy, a bowerbird feasts upon the berries of a tropical palm. In the 40-degree heat, a swim in the plunge pool is inviting. With so much water flowing through, care must be exercised. Some people are just plain stupid when it comes to personal safety though, and ignore even the most blatant signs in search of a thrill. For most visitors, the tranquility of the bush, the spectacle of the falls, and the glimpses of wildlife are thrilling enough. Most of Litchfield National Park is accessible by two-wheel drive vehicle with sealed roads linking the highlights. In spite of its good roads, it is still potentially dangerous if people wander off the walking tracks or become injured whilst climbing about cliffs. In Litchfield National Park, there's 2 of these devices. They're for emergencies. If somebody gets in real trouble, you press the green button in, hold it in for 30 seconds, and if all goes well, you should be talking to somebody who can bring help.
One of the great features of visiting the Northern Territory in the wet season is the variety of wildflowers which don't bloom in the dry. I confess to being a bit of a wildflower enthusiast, so I happily spend hours photographing them. Tolma Falls, also gushing with plenty of water, offers a picturesque spectacle at the end of a half-kilometre track. The pathway is even sealed with bitumen to provide wheelchair access. The path terminates with a viewing platform right over the falls. Some plants which have managed to take root in seemingly barren rocks appear dead, except for their flourishing green foliage.
We conclude our waterfall crawl by camping at the thunderous Wangai Falls. In the dry season, this is a popular swimming hole, but with this roaring avalanche of water, swimming is understandably closed for the duration of the wet.
Let the Leylands show you the way.
As soon as we arrive at Darwin, we find a comfortable caravan park in which to unload our caravans for the next 2 weeks while we thoroughly investigate the top end of the territory. By the way, here's a little hint when it comes to hooking up the water. Always carry one of these adapters with you, because from time to time travelling around Australia, you'll find that the taps have different threads on them. Also, give it a little bit of a run like that before you hook it on, just in case there happens to be some spiders living in there, or maybe even some ants. When we intend to stay anywhere for several days, we always erect our awnings. This one is simple to put up and offers a great shelter from the hot sun, or, as this is the wet season, the rain. In outback Australia you often can't find any shade, so having an awning like this that you can put up in a few minutes is a great idea.
The first call for Carmen and me is an internet cafe, so we can check our email and bring our friends up to date on our travels. To get a good look at Darwin and visit some of its more unusual features, we head for the mall to board an open-air tour bus known as the Tour Tub. It leaves from the head of the mall every hour on the hour. A ticket allows us to travel all day on the tub, alighting and reboarding it at any of a dozen spots on a round city circuit.
Darwin is a modern tropical city described by many as the most cosmopolitan city in the world. It's home to a large mix of people of different ethnic backgrounds, the racial melting pot of the world. Many of its buildings are contemporary due to the fact that Darwin was almost obliterated by a cyclone in the 1970s and has been lovingly rebuilt. It suffered a similar fate during the Second World War, when in 1942 the first and most devastating of 64 Japanese air attacks left it in ruins. The first attack was Australia's equivalent of America's Pearl Harbour and surprised 44 ships at anchor. The first raid almost totally destroyed the oil storage tanks in the harbour. As a result, these tunnels were excavated into solid rock. They were intended to be impregnable storage tunnels for vital oil supplies, but were never used for that purpose. When news of the destruction of Darwin from Japanese air attacks reached the general population, men came from all over the country to complete this amazing feat of construction. Their workmanship is as good now as when it was finished. Today, the tunnels are open to the public and house a collection of wartime photographs which chronicle those dark and desperate times when invasion was imminent.
Next stop for the tour tub is Doctor's Gully, where at high tide every day for over 30 years, wild fish have been coming in from the murky waters of the harbour to be hand-fed. It began when a local diver and adventurer, who then owned a boat shed here, began throwing scraps of bread to the fish. Amazingly, thousands of wild fish turn up right on time and simply line up for a handout. It's been open to the public now for many years, and visitors love the experience. The fish are so plentiful that most of the city's stale bread ends up here.
They just suck on it.
Most of the fish simply suck the bread from our hands. They're not supposed to bite, but I'm not really sure.
Back on the tour tub, we're quickly whisked away to Darwin's notorious Fanny Bay Jail. This set of hot tin buildings served as Darwin's principal jail for many years and is now open as a tourist curiosity. Inside, visitors can see where a hanging took place and experience the confines of the maximum security cells.
I didn't do it!
Tempted as we were to leave Carmen in the cell, we relented and allowed her to join us on our last stop, the Indo-Pacific Marine Aquarium.
Thanks, Robert.
Situated at the harbour front, this unusual display is unique in the world. It may look at first like a big fish tank, but this is special. Every fish, plant, seaweed, coral, crab and other living creature on display here was caught in Darwin Harbour. This represents the underwater world of Darwin. The entire aquarium is a perfectly balanced ecosystem similar to that in nature. Water from the harbour is pumped through the tanks to provide sustenance in the form of microorganisms. Nowhere else in the world has this been achieved, and represents a major accomplishment for its owners who constructed it over a 30-year period. Some of the most attractive fish are also the most dangerous. The butterfly fish has stinging glands strong enough to kill.
The symbiotic relationship between the sea anemone with its stinging tentacles and the clownfish is intriguing. The clownfish is unharmed by the anemone in return for luring other unsuspecting fish to swim with him among the waving arms of death. The clownfish feeds on the undevoured scraps of the hapless victims.
The reef pond is like an amazing magic garden, complete with creatures which look more like flowers than animals. We rejoin the tour tub and return to our starting point.
We take full advantage of Darwin's famous markets to experience the fresh produce shopping and the great variety of freshly cooked food. With cultures from all over the world, particularly Asia, represented in Darwin's population, it comes as no surprise to find the Rapid Creek markets are brimming with all kinds of culinary delights. The mix of exotic aromas tantalises the senses.
Apple cake.
Pineapple? Oh yes, I'll get one of those.
Apple. And this one, apple cinnamon.
Oh,
Apple cinnamon.
I'll get one of those too. And what's what do you got there?
Satay prawn.
And what do you got?
Chicken string roll.
How much?
Good.
I find myself unable to resist the chance to pick up some new recipes.
Okay. We're making a pawpaw salad. I put 1 chili in, half a clove of garlic, just a little bit of pawpaw to smash them up, and then I'll put pawpaw in.
Right, now this pawpaw's not ripe, it's still green.
No, it's a green pawpaw salad. You shred them. And tomato.
No, that is
Peanuts.
Crushed peanuts.
Crushed peanut. Sugar.
What's this?
Fish sauce.
Sorry?
Fish sauce.
Oh, fish sauce.
Fish sauce, yeah. There.
3 of those.
And that is lemon juice.
Right.
That's it. Then you smash them up.
It smells alright.
And have a try.
Thank you.
Want to have a try?
It's not bad. I'm surprised. All those ingredients together, I thought, It's very nice. Very nice. I can see how it goes well with steak, barbecue steak especially. Vinnie shows me her Laotian-style chicken noodle soup recipe.
That's a chicken. Alright. Then I put oyster sauce in. Then garlic oil.
Can I have one bang file, please?
Then I put dry cabbage pickle. Then come here, I got bean sprout. And then here I got celery.
Yes, please.
Celery. Then pepper. That's a chicken stock. That's it.
To the basic soup, individuals can add their own additional flavours according to taste.
Peanut in, or you can have chili sauce. You can have garlic chili and coriander and a spring onion.
That's nice.
The soup chicken or beef?
You sound surprised.
I am. I haven't had anything like this before. It's nice.
Chicken.
Let the Leylands show you the way.
We journey east of Darwin into the untamed splendour of perhaps Australia's best-known national park, Kakadu. Already monsoon rains have transformed the country into a carpet of green.
Our first taste of the park is a 1 kilometre walk to the Mataranka wetlands. Here elaborate observation platforms have been constructed where visitors may spend many hours observing the bird life. During the wet, most of the birds are scattered throughout the vastness of Kakadu, but some remain to entertain us.
During the wet, the lowlands consist of vast swamps, lagoons, creeks and rivers which meld into one shapeless, watery world. Although ground travel is restricted in some parts by the extensive inundation, this is in many ways the best time to visit. These massive swamps, home to countless crocodiles and millions of birds, are rejuvenated by the annual monsoons. This was once an ancient ocean bed. The rugged cliffs of the distant Arnhem Land escarpment form the craggy coastline. The weathered ancient sandstone of the old coast is a jagged landscape concealing many occupational sites used by Aborigines for centuries.
These cliffs and rocky outcrops offered shelter and good hunting to the original inhabitants. Today, circuit walking trails lead through the maze of crags, ravines and weathered stone to some of the most spectacular vistas in Kakadu.
At Nolangi Rock, the high humidity and profuse rains have given birth to a myriad of different fungi. Some adorn the trackside, like discarded dinner plates. Plants which are dormant during the dry season bloom at every twist of the track. Protected from extremes of weather, many of the rock shelters provided good camps for the Aborigines who roamed this land. Their art adorns the rock walls of hundreds of occupational sites and represents some of the finest examples of rock art in the world. Rock wallabies appreciate the shady protection of the jagged outcrops too. By moving quietly along the track, it's possible to experience intimate encounters with these wary members of the kangaroo family. The main Nolangi rock art site is possibly the best in Kakadu. Here, legendary spirit figures of Aboriginal mythology have been painstakingly represented along with the Dreamtime stories of creation. Many of these figures are 2 metres high, an indication in itself of the importance placed upon the site by the artists who painted them. No trip to Kakadu is complete without a sense of appreciation of its significance to the Aboriginal people.
One of the great advantages to visiting Kakadu in the wet season is that most places are quiet. There are no crowds. Yellow Water's campground is almost empty, and the tour boat which provides access to the flooded waterways is also nearly empty. Yellow Water Wetlands is part of the South Alligator River floodplain, a pristine watery wilderness of unsurpassed beauty where close encounters with the wildlife are guaranteed.
Gathering storm clouds, a daily occurrence, suddenly transforms our afternoon voyage. A teeming torrential deluge opens upon our tour boat, reminding us once again that this is the monsoon season. Life for lily-walking lotus birds and their frail offspring continues unaffected. As quickly as it arrived, the storm disperses. Every year, massive volumes of rainwater drench the high sandstone plateau of the escarpment where a gathering occurs. The ponds, streams and creeks feed hundreds of plummeting cascades to inundate the floodplains of Kakadu, an ageless ritual as old as time itself. Kakadu in the wet, one of Australia's greatest natural wonders. Next on Leyland's Australia, our caravanning odyssey takes us to Central Australia. Old Police Station Waterhole is a perfect place to camp.
Yep, that's cooked.
You probably like it.
I cooked it. Carmen's taken.
And I'm eating it.
Robert and I decide to take a ride down the dry course of the Todd River.
We tackle a serpentine circular walking trail around the steep sides of a breathtaking gorge.
These birds have learned to split the tough shell by throwing a stone at it until it cracks. Next on Leyland's Australia.
Our countryside is on display. Pack up your caravan.
For great travel information, why not collect Leyland's Australia, the magazine? A new one will be in your newsagents every 3 months. If you like our TV shows, you'll love the magazine.
Leyland's Australia, great Aussie holidays. Australia, let the Leylands show you the way. The Leylands will show you Australia. Let the Leylands show you the way.